Hey everyone, welcome back. This is a true story from 2024, when I noticed a shadow in my apartment that moved only when I stood still. What I discovered about it turned my life into a nightmare. This'll make you fear your own shadow. In early 2024, I was 29, living alone in a Chicago apartment, working remotely as a software developer. The place was modern, all glass and open space, perfect for my minimalist vibe. One night, while coding late, I noticed my shadow on the wall, cast by my desk lamp. It was normal until I stopped moving. I froze, staring at my laptop, and the shadow shifted, stretching taller, its head tilting. I spun around. Nothing was behind me, the lamp steady. My heart raced, but I chalked it up to exhaustion. The next night, it happened again. I stood still and the shadow moved, its arms reaching out, fingers claw-like. I turned off the lamp. The shadow vanished, but I felt watched. I checked the apartment, doors locked, windows shut, no one there. I set up a webcam to record my desk, hoping to catch a glitch. The footage showed my shadow moving while I sat motionless, its form growing darker, more defined. I moved my lamp thinking it was light tricks, but the shadow followed, appearing on any wall I faced. It wasn't mine, it had a life of its own. The shadow's movements grew bolder. Every time I stood still, brushing my teeth, cooking, reading, the shadow twitched, its form sharpening like it was studying me. At night, it lingered on my bedroom ceiling, even with lights off, faintly glowing. I called my sister Ava, who thought I was stressed but agreed to stay over. She saw it too. I stood by the kitchen counter and the shadow slid across the wall, forming a face with hollow eyes. Ava screamed and my phone died, screen flashing the shadow's silhouette. I researched the building, built in 2005, but the site was once a 19th century tenement where a tenant, a recluse, vanished after ranting about living shadows. The webcam footage got worse. My shadow now moved when I slept, pacing the room. I covered mirrors, thinking reflections were the cause, but the shadow appeared in them, closer, its eyes glinting. Whispers started at 3 a.m. saying, "Lucas, stay still." I taped my windows, kept lights on, but the shadow grew darker, following me everywhere. Ava refused to return, saying it watched her too. I felt it waiting for me to stop moving, to claim me. The whispers grew personal, naming my fears. Losing my job, being alone forever. One night, the shadow moved while I stood in the bathroom, its hand reaching from the wall, cold air brushing my neck. I ran, but my reflection in the mirror showed the shadow's face, not mine, grinning. I contacted a paranormal investigator, Mark, from a local forum. He arrived with EMF meters, detecting spikes near my desk. The shadow appeared on his camera, moving while I stood still, its eyes glowing. Mark found scratches on my walls like claw marks, fresh each night. He said it might be a shadow entity, feeding on stillness, possibly tied to the tenement's recluse who practiced occult rituals. The whispers turned to laughter, echoing from vents. I tried leaving, but my car wouldn't start, and the shadow's face appeared in the windshield. Mark suggested a cleansing ritual, but during it, the lights flickered and the shadow grew massive, covering the ceiling. My webcam caught it forming words. "Lucas, be still." I clutched across from my drawer, praying, but the shadow laughed louder, its presence suffocating. The entity escalated. The shadow appeared in daylight, trailing me on every wall, moving when I stopped. My vision blurred when it got close, like it was draining me. Mark stayed over, setting up salt lines, but they scattered at 3 a.m., and the shadow touched him, leaving red marks on his arm. We found a journal in the building's basement left by the recluse, describing a ritual to bind a shadow for power. But it backfired, trapping him. The shadow whispered my childhood secrets, things I'd buried. My laptop crashed, displaying only the shadow's face, eyes glowing. Ava called, saying she saw it in her house, begging me to fix it. We tried burning sage, it flared out, and the shadow laughed, forming hands that grabbed at us. The apartment's temperature dropped, breath visible. Mark's camera caught the shadow mimicking my every pose, but distorted, eyeless. We planned to move the ritual to a church, but the shadow blocked the door, its form solidifying, voice booming. "Stay still, Lucas." I felt my body slow, like it controlled me. Mark broke a window, pulling me out, but the shadow followed. We fled to a nearby church carrying a cross and salt. Father Paul, a priest, recognized the entity from occult texts, a shadow demon that feeds on stillness, growing stronger with fear. He began an exorcism, But the shadow appeared in the church's stained glass, its eyes bleeding darkness. My phone vibrated, showing photos of me standing still, the shadow's hands on my shoulders. The journal mentioned a blood ritual to banish it, requiring the host's sacrifice. I refused, but the shadow spoke through me, voice not mine, saying, "You're mine." Father Paul sprinkled holy water. It burned my skin and I screamed, feeling the shadow inside. Mark cut his hand, offering blood to weaken it, and the shadow recoiled, but my vision darkened, legs freezing. The church shook, candles flaring, and the shadow's face formed in the smoke, laughing. I clutched the cross, chanting prayers, and it weakened but whispered, "I'll wait." We sealed the journal in a salt-lined box, hoping to trap it. The shadow faded, but I felt its eyes, always watching when I stopped moving. The shadow didn't leave. Back in my apartment, it appeared in every corner, moving when I stood still, its eyes brighter, more human-like. My body felt heavy, like it was pulling me to stop. Mark found more scratches, now on my bed frame, forming words, "Be still." I called Ava. She was safe but saw the shadow in her mirror. Father Paul stayed, praying nightly, but the shadow grew bolder, knocking objects off shelves when I paused. My webcam showed it standing over me as I slept, hands hovering. Online forums mentioned shadow entities latching onto hosts, feeding on fear of stillness. The recluse's journal said blood could bind it temporarily, but only a willing sacrifice, standing still forever, would banish it. I tried moving constantly, but exhaustion hit and the shadow whispered, "Stop, Lucas." One night it touched me, cold as ice, and my heart slowed, vision fading. Father Paul thrust his cross forward, and the shadow screamed, retreating. We planned a final ritual at the church, but the shadow blocked the door again, its form nearly solid, eyes locked on mine, waiting for me to freeze. We forced our way to the church, breaking a window to escape. Father Paul performed the ritual, using my blood in a salt circle, chanting to bind the shadow. The entity appeared, solid now, its face a twisted version of mine, eyes hollow but grinning. It screamed, "You can't move forever!" As the church shook, pews rattling. My blood sizzled in the circle and the shadow shrank, trapped in the journal, which we burned. The flames turned black and it vanished, but my body felt wrong, like part of me was gone. We buried the ashes in consecrated ground, but shadows flickered in my peripheral vision. I moved to a new apartment, but the entity followed, appearing when I paused, brushing my teeth, waiting for coffee. Ava saw it too in her home. Father Paul said it's weakened but waits for stillness. Online, others reported similar shadows tied to old rituals. I keep moving, avoiding pauses, but my eyes burn and whispers linger at 3 a.m., saying, "Stop." The shadow's waiting, always one pause away from returning. In my new place, I never stay still long, pacing, tapping, anything to keep the shadow at bay. But at night, when exhaustion hits, it appears, lurking in corners, moving when I falter. Mirrors show its face behind mine, eyes glowing. I joined a paranormal group. Others described shadow entities feeding on moments of rest. One woman said hers vanished after constant motion, but I'm tiring. The recluse's ritual cursed this thing to me, and Father Paul warns it's not gone, just waiting. My vision blurs when I pause, like it's stealing my life. Ava avoids me, scared it'll latch onto her. Online posts mention the tenement, shadows seen by other tenants, all after the recluse vanished. I keep salt lines and crosses, but scratches appear on walls spelling Lucas. I sleep with lights on, moving even in dreams, but the whispers grow, urging me to stop. The shadow's patient, watching every moment I hesitate, ready to claim me. I fear one day I'll be too tired to move and it'll take me completely. Thanks for watching the video and subscribe the channel. That's my story. True and terrifying. Keep moving. Some shadows wait for you to stop.